Alan Watts was one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century. He had a unique way of explaining deep and complex ideas in a way that felt simple and clear. His philosophy was mainly about life, the self, reality, and how to live fully in the present moment. He was deeply influenced by Zen Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and Western philosophy, and he spent his life trying to show people that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. Watts believed that most people suffer because they misunderstand life. They think of themselves as separate from the world, trapped inside their bodies, looking out at an external universe. But Watts argued that this is an illusion. Instead, he thought that you are not just in the universe, you are the universe experiencing itself. Today, we'll look into his key ideas and we'll try to truly understand what he was saying. One of Watts' biggest ideas was that everything is connected. We often think of ourselves as separate from nature, as if we are lonely individuals trapped inside our heads. But Watts said that this is like a wave thinking it is separate from the ocean. He explained, you are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. This means that you are not just a small person lost in a big world. Instead, you are the world, just much as a tree, a river, or a cloud. Life is not happening to you. You are life itself. Now, imagine a whirlpool in a river. The whirlpool looks like a separate thing, but it is just the river moving in a certain way. In the same way, you are not separate from the world. You are just the universe taking on a particular shape for a while. This is why Watts often laughed at people who felt lonely or lost. He said, how can you be lost if you are the whole universe? Watts taught that one of the biggest problems in life is the illusion of the ego. The ego is that little voice in your head that says, I am me, I am separate, I must control everything. But Watts argued that the ego is not real. It is just a collection of thoughts, memories, and fears that we mistake for our true self. He compared it to a wave trying to separate itself from the ocean. He said, the ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. This means that the I you think you are is just a tiny part of you. The real you is much deeper, much bigger. In fact, it is everything. The problem is that we take the ego too seriously. We identify with our thoughts, our worries, and our problems. But Watts said that the ego is just a trick of the mind, like an illusion in the desert. When you see through it, you become free. This leads to one of his most important lessons. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Many people think of life as a journey with a destination. They believe they must work hard, achieve goals, and get somewhere. But Watts said that this is a mistake. Life is not a journey, it's a dance. As he says, the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. He used music as an example. The point of a song is not to get to the end, is to enjoy every note. In the same way, the point of life is not to reach some future goal, but to fully experience each moment. This idea comes from Taoism, which teaches us that life is a flowing river. Instead of fighting against the current, you should flow with it. Stop trying to force life to be a certain way. Just dance with it. Many people are afraid of death, but Watts believed that death is not something to fear. He said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. This means that the thing that fears death, which is the ego, is not really you. Just like waves rise and fall, life and death are part of the same thing. You did not fear not existing before you were born, so why fear it after you die? Watts compared death to sleep. Every night you disappear into deep sleep, but you don't fear it. In the same way, death is just the universe resting before waking up again in another form. This idea is also found in Hinduism, which teaches us that life is an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. You are not a small separate soul. You are the universe itself, playing hide and seek with itself. The final and perhaps most important lesson from Watts is to trust life. He believed that most people suffer because they try to control everything. But Watts said that life is too big, too mysterious to be controlled. Instead of resisting, let go. As he says, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. This means trusting that the universe knows what it's doing. You don't have to figure everything out. Just relax and experience life as it comes. This is what Watts called the art of Wu Wei, a Taoist concept that means effortless action. It means going with the flow of life instead of fighting it. Alan Watts' philosophy is ultimately about freedom. Freedom from the illusion of the ego, from the fear of death, from the stress of control. He thought that you are not just a tiny separate person, you are the entire universe, playing a game with itself. Life is not a problem to solve, but a dance to be enjoyed. If you truly understand this, then you are free. Free to laugh at life, free to let go of worry, free to experience each moment deeply. As Watts said, man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun.